Are we ready? Yep. Okay. Director Mack.
I will move the $80,000 for this position.
Thank you. And seconded by Director Rainbow. Further discussion? Go ahead.
I just want to thank the fire chief for the work in the presentation and the proposed direction forward, as well as breaking it out into the 2 phases that allows the board further time for discussion and consultation on some of the core questions that will help advance how we structure our fire service going forward. And then giving us the opportunity to think about how we do engagement in the 2nd phase based on those questions. I think that this is important work for us to be able to do, to be able to provide clarity for our staff and for our community on what fire service is going to look like through the regional district going forward. So thanks for the work.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I particularly appreciated the comment about it can be this or it can be this, and a lot of that first stage is to do that work, and I think that'll be really interesting when it comes back to the board. So enthusiastic for the work.
Director Rupert.
Yeah, thank you. Also, in support of this direction, I think that it's incredibly important that we understand clearly our delivery of our fire services, and this work advances that, and we know that we've experienced directly impacts of fire in the district, and that doesn't appear to be lessening. So I think anything we can do to better prepare ourselves for that is a worthwhile endeavor, and including this work. And I think it'll have a large impact going forward. So thank you for that. Happy to support.
Thank you. Director Mack.
Yeah, I think everybody has to understand that when a fire happens, it doesn't matter whether it's in downtown Squamish, Vancouver, Whistler, or Darcy, or Goldbridge. It's the same thing. So a house fire is a house fire, and the people going to that house fire have to have the same training, whether they're Squamish, Vancouver, wherever. Fire doesn't determine its severity on who's coming. So we have to remember that. Our fire service has to be as good in, Goldbridge, wherever, throughout our corridor. And that's something we can't lose sight of. So, in other words, we need to support these folks as much as possible.
Okay. Thank you. Final comments? On the question, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you all.
Thanks, bro. These next, that's all in one go.
Probably not. All the first, second, and third readings together.
And then all the adoptions together.
Fantastic. So we're doing from 1903 to 1911. First, second, and third readings. We've seen these before. We've had reports, we've had presentations. We've dug into this for months and months and months, and we'll do this all again in about 7 months, right? Thank you. I'm not making light of it. I do think that this is really important work, and thank you for everything you've put into the report. Go ahead.
I want to move it.
Great.
I want to say the same as I said earlier about, I really appreciate the process, the way the time that staff put into it, and the communication they had with us. So, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Of the processes I've been involved with budgeting here, this has been the one that made the most sense. There's still a lot of learning to in the role, but I'm happy to support and appreciate the ongoing process refinements. So thank you.
With that, I'll call a question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And now that the bylaws as laid out in the package from 1903 to 1911 be adopted, moved by Director Richmond, seconded by Director Rainbow. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Board, could I just ask a question about, doesn't have a number, it's under 7.5, which the 20,000 Area B Northern Belt Reserve be allocated to the Area B Regional Parks and Trail Services. Is Suzanne there? We talked about this.
Want to come forward so that she can see you on the screen? So we are now on 7.5, and this is supplemental funding information for the financial plan bylaw. And Rich Jones is bringing forward the $20,000 from Area B Northern Pilt Reserve to be allocated to the Parks and Trails Services.
Yeah, so we won't pass that. That's the one
Okay.
that we decided is not needed in 2025.
Okay. So we will strike that from, and I imagine you want, all the rest can be handled together. Fantastic. So removing the 20,000 from Area B. And with that, are there any others that anyone would like to ask any questions about before I rush through this? I don't want to rush anyone.
With that change, I'll move the other ones.
Seconder, Director Rainbow. Comments or questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And 7.6, the adoption of the SLRD 2025 financial plan bylaw. And this is to be read a first, second, and third time, moved by Director Crompton, second by.
Can staff just clarify what was changed from the February? I see the 2 bullet points. I was just had a hard time processing what they actually meant. That can clarify the changes.
Suzanne LaFrance, Director of Finance. So the regional budgets were reviewed by the board in February, every board meeting. And at the time, it was decided to remove the transfer from operational surplus reserve of 200,000. So that has been now taken out of the budget. So the reserve is not being touched for 2025.
Correct.
And then the boundary expansion funding, that's 30,000 typically carried over year, in case there is any boundary expansion needs, and the SLRD has to jump on looking at changes. I removed that expense, so not showing up in the expenses. And the premise was, if there was any boundary expansion needs or changes, we would deal with that funding at the time, most likely taken from the surplus reserve.
Lillooet, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I just have a question, through the chair, Suzanne. The $4,000 BC Hydro EV charging incentive has been added to the miscellaneous revenue. What are SLRD's views on the Tesla? Can I ask that? Like, cause I know that the province is doing some different things, and I'm wondering if what the SLRDs, like if we're doing a $4,000 EV charging incentive, do we have any changes to that?
I don't quite understand the question, but that incentive is for the electric vehicle that we added to the budget in 2025.
As part of our
So
fleet.
it's part of a
See,
application. Sorry. What was that?
Uh-huh. What is happening?
I don't know what's going on.
Sorry.
I can have my phone.
So, sorry, that 4,000 revenue is just because we plan on purchasing an electric vehicle and then requesting that rebate. So BC Hydro offers these rebates for electrifying your vehicle.
Oh, okay, so I misread that then, and that's an incentive for us.
It's a
revenue.
rebate that the SLRD is receiving because we're upgrading our fleet.
Okay, okay, all right, my mistake. Thanks for clarification.
Thank you. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, just the 1761 emergency planning, wasn't sure if I should ask it here or in the electoral area budgets, but is that a place in future years where we could set aside funding for enhanced emergency response? Because I see the provincial sort of monies that come to us after seem to flow through that fund, and so is that where if we wanted to be sort of build out our own emergency response, that would be a ready-made cost center we could use, or that would be a whole other discussion?
It's not meant for, sorry, Suzanne LaFrance, Director of Finance. It's not meant for response. We have fire protection services for that, but it's for emergency planning. So all the plans for you know, those other fire protection services are done in this service. But it's not to build up the response level.
Sure, in terms of the cost center we set up, we usually have a task number and we'll set up a specific cost center for each response, so we can track the cost to potentially recover from the province.
Okay. All right, this good. I just have in the back of my mind, I think there needs to be a discussion still about what is our role in emergency response, and so on. So I want to understand a little bit, without getting too much onto attention. That's good for now. Thank you.
Anyone else? No, okay. With that, would someone like to move the first, second, and third reading of this? Moved by Director Rainbow, second by Director Crompton. Comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And that this bylaw be adopted, please. Moved by Director Crompton, second by Director Richmond. In favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. You? Sure. Thank you both.
Another budget done.
Thanks.
Now, you can rest for 5 minutes until the next process starts.
2026 budget process starts today.
Started 5 minutes ago. Okay. We good? We good? Okay. Alexis, join us. Planning. Strategic plan? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We're talking about the Area C OCP amendments by law. Second and third.
So thank you, Alex Mackay, planner with the SLRD. I am happy to give a presentation on this report, a brief presentation, or happy to take questions. I'll leave that to the board, what you would prefer.
I think we'll just go with questions. Does anyone have any questions on the report? I don't see any. Would anyone like to move that this be introduced and given first reading? And then that it be given second reading, and that we refer it to the member municipalities and appropriate First Nations and all of the other agencies there, and then that we schedule a public hearing.
Yes.
Moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Hooper. Comments? But
This is really minor, but something just in language for consideration that we've done at the District of Squamish is moving away from the use of multi-family to multi-unit dwellings. Just in order to recognize that it's not often defined by families who live within one building. And so something for consideration if we wanted to evolve the language a little bit to reflect more modern practices.
would also better reflect the provincial language of small scale, multi-unit. Thank you for that. With that, I will call the question. All in favor? Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Mackay.
Thank you.
7.8, Area C OCP and zoning amendment, district lot, Blackwater Road.
I'll move that.
And is that both that's be adopted?
It is, and
Together?
could I just ask a question about the previous? So on the previous one, there it said that blah, 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 would be sent out to all the appropriate folks.
Yeah.
Did we actually vote on that? I thought we voted on the first two that's.
No,
All of them.
We did all that?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect, that's fine, thank you. Yeah, and I would like to move both that's on 7.8.
Are you seconding that?
Yeah.
Is there any further comment? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 8.1, CAO verbal update on the Trans-Canada Trail grant.
Perfect. Just a quick update. Staff applied for and have received confirmation for a Trans-Canada Trails grant to be used for funding a portion of the design for the Checkmas Canyon Highway section of the Sky Trail. The grant funds 50% of eligible expenditures and will cover $29,300 towards the bridge design required as part of the section of Sea to Sky Trail. The other 50% will be funded through the Wilson 5 donation. And I just wanted to give a shout out to our Parks and Trails Coordinator and the US team for working in this. Yeah.
Questions? No? Okay, can I get someone move or receipt of the verbal update moved by Director Herford, seconded by Director Stoner? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. 8.2, a TUP for Tiger Bay, Area D.
And that's joining us, and Kim's here as well.
Good afternoon, Ms. Katroniak. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. Good to see everyone. I can quickly go over this TUP application. So it has been presented to the board at the December 11, 2024 Board of Directors meeting, where the board requested information on soil contamination and invasive species testing, runoff and stormwater management, protection of the riparian area, dust mitigation, traffic management, hours of operation, and length of the project. Additional information was provided and it's summarized in the report as well as described in more detail in the Appendix B. The board also requested that the applicant conduct a public information meeting. This took place on February 6, 2025, where approximately 15 people were in attendance. Details are also available in the report in the Appendix B. It should also be noted that since the last meeting, the draft TUP was updated to include additional key conditions. One being that stormwater runoff is to be managed in accordance with the provided stormwater management plan. So the perforated pipe system and sediment pond, etc. And the second key condition is that an independent qualified environmental professional monitors for contamination and keeps a record of all sources of soil. Let me know if you have any questions I could assist with. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your report. Questions? Director Stoner, go ahead.
Thank you through the chair. I appreciate the additional work that's been done on this to date. I'm just curious how the amount of $7,000 for the irrevocable line of credit was determined and whether we feel that that's sufficient for remediation if something does go wrong.
Through the chair, I can speak to that. Kim Needham, Director of Planning and Development Services. That amount was arrived at because essentially when they're finished with the work on the site, they're not bringing any buildings on site. They're going to have a small sediment pond. And so it was felt that that should be enough to just level the site when they're done.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess unless I've confused the site, like we've had interest from or some filming work being done there. There's a pending rezoning and I guess I'm trying to align what sort of our vision is in terms of the OCP and regional growth strategy. We seem to be jumping all over the place in terms of uses as opposed to like this is with our strategies and so on, how we think we want to move forward. We've had our proponents that we want to move forward and we're moving in all different directions. Like how do we sort of reconcile that?
Thanks. Through the chair, I could speak to that as well because I have been working on the rezoning. It sits at third reading. So right now the OCP is still for basically a resource extraction use. The site is zoned for resource extraction for gravel extraction. It just doesn't allow processing. So this is actually very much aligned with the current zoning and current OCP designation. With the rezoning application, which is for 1,050 units and a number of retail and residential uses, among other things. They would start on the one end of the site, which is the opposite end of where this would be. So by the time would do, it provided that the zoning gets approved. By the time they build the start of that site out, this TUP would likely be expired. And the construction of the site can coexist with this use.
That answer your question?
Not entirely, but I'll sit on that for a second.
Director Crompton?
So this, a couple questions for clarity. This proposes to bring off-site invasive species onto the property to, no,
No.
okay, so what's it doing? It's,
I'll let Ms. Katerniak speak.
oh, sorry,
Yeah.
sorry.
Through the chair, yeah, so they're proposing to bring soil on to the property. They will be monitoring for invasive species and the quality of the soil.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Could we explicitly preclude processing of acid rock and sort of input materials?
Through the chair, we did not explicitly exclude that use. We have only excluded compost, but that could be one of the conditions if so deemed by the board.
I think that would be a concern of mine, for sure.
So would you like to approve the TUP with an amendment that acid rock is excluded from processing?
I think if someone puts forward the motion, I would add that. I'm not sure I even want to support this use.
I see. Go ahead.
Just in the traffic impact, it says that, higher, like consumer driven uses might be appropriate here with the infrastructure that's there. But I wondered, is that something like, that's being considered as far as like once this material is treated in whatever way, they've created it into a product, is that to leave in the same fashion, or is it like a landscape supply where it's more traffic back and forth? That part wasn't clear to me here. Is there anything in the zone that allows that, or in the permit that regulates that in any way?
Through the chair, we are not regulating where the soil would come and go from, as long as it's a safe source. Sorry, go ahead.
I meant more like, how are they, once it's ready to be processed and ready to go somewhere else, how are they selling that? Is it a like landscape supply that individuals can come with a pickup truck, or is it just a wholesale? And is that captured in either the existing zoning or the permitting?
Through the chair, that is not captured. However, during the public information meeting, they did state that they will be providing topsoil. It appears larger scales primarily, but also available on smaller scales. And they're also planning to provide any sort of soil needs for the future multi-unit development on site.
Right. Yeah, through the chair, this is not meant to be like a retailer of topsoil.
So how do we, that's how I read it as well, and I appreciate that comment. How do we ensure that, either in the permit or does the zoning already exclude that type of use? I just want to be clear to the community and the proponent what this is or isn't.
Yeah, it's not provided for within the permit. Yeah, it's for a temporary commercial soil and aggregate processing facility. It's not meant to be like a sales facility or a retailer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What are our current noise bylaws? There were some concerns raised about potential noise, and so what's our ability to manage that?
I'll let Ms. Katerniak answer that one.
Through the chair, so in terms of noise concerns, our bylaw enforcement is available for that. I believe a certain amount of noise is allowed Monday to Saturday between certain hours. I will have to double check which hours those are.
This is a very sort of high level question. Is it considered punitive to decline a request like this? Yeah, I mean, this is a temporary use, so it's not a allowed use at this point, even though this is a industrial site. So what's being requested should be something that sort of meets the expectations and desires of our framing documents like our GS and our OCP and those kind of things. So is it, I guess, reasonable to consider those things as we make this decision? And is it reasonable to turn down a request like this?
Allowed to say no to a TUP.
Yeah.
That's
I guess
the
I'm opening that,
application.
I guess I'm opening up that, that's what I'm asking myself, and if you have comments during the comment section, I will be listening for answers like that.
Okay, shall we move on? Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I recommend, I'll find it in a minute. Option 1, approved temporary use permit number 77.
Okay, would someone like to second that? Director Max? Comments? Go ahead, Director Magdalene.
Move an amendment to preclude explicitly the processing of acid rock and other hazardous materials.
Okay, would someone like to second the amendment? Director Stoner? Would you like to speak to it?
Yeah,
But
I do have concerns that this is largely aimed at dealing with tunnel spoils and so on. And I know there has been historically acid rock challenges and concerns about acid rock in particular. And so in particular, I want to mitigate against those potential sorts of issues.
but
This question, and maybe no one knows the answer to this, is acid rock and other hazardous materials make this process moot, or can you do this work without processing other hazardous materials?
go ahead.
Ms. Katrina, through the
Yeah.
chair?
Through the chair, acid rock is not typically a material that's used in topsoil, which is their primary objective here.
Okay, so this, okay, all right, that's helpful for me, thank you.
Go ahead, Director Stoner.
Further to Director Crompton's question and why I did support seconding of this amendment. There is language in the TUP that a qualified environmental professional shall conduct contamination monitoring for the received soils. And so I think that just helps clarify language on what we might consider contaminated soils, acid rock, hazardous materials. So I think that they've already agreed to do that level of inspection on loads coming in. And so I don't think it adds any additional burden than what's presented.
Okay. Further comments?
I
With
just-
that, I'll call the question on the amendment, which is to add the language about acid rock and hazardous materials, which is already contemplated in the TUP. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And on the amended motion,
It's taken care of already. So
it's all good. I'll call the question, all in favor? Oh, go ahead.
And I thought the amendment, in case this passes, was important to get in, but I actually don't support this use. I think the amount of work we've put into getting through to the rezoning and what I've heard from Creative BC and other agencies about, you know, preferred uses for the space and so on, I'm just not convinced that in everything we're trying to do and where we invest our municipal time, that allowing this use makes sense at this point in time.
Thank you for that comment. Any other comments?
Just that some of the, they're proposing that some of the activity that goes on here will facilitate what they want to do in terms of construction and so forth. So there's a connection.
With that, I will call the question. All in favor? Is there anyone opposed? Director Pettengill is opposed. Motion. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Katriniak.
Thank you.
I was hoping there was more behind that. I was like, am I allowed to do this?
Is somebody gonna be mad?
I've been doing this only for 14 years, so I'm a little.
I just don't wanna upset anyone, just.
Okay, it's getting late.
Is that both the bats on that item?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sometimes. I'm not-
Let's throw something at me. All right. Peanut gallery over there. 8.3, I think just for the clarity of everyone, we're gonna go till 4 o'clock and then we're gonna call it a day. We'll pick up tomorrow. Is that fine? Anyone wanna go later?
No, thank you.
No, thank you. Okay. 8.3, SLRD participation in the Ministry of Forest Cooperative Community Wildfire Response Program. Hello, Mr. Fusca.
Good afternoon, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Mike Fusca, and I'm the SLRD's Emergency Program Manager. Today, I'm presenting this RFD for the board, requesting that the SLRD decline participation in the Ministry of Forest Cooperative Community Wildfire Response Program. The Cooperative Community Wildfire Response Program, or CCWR for short, was originally envisioned to implement lessons learned during the 2023 wildfire season, including lessons from the Downton Lake wildfire that heavily impacted the SLRD communities of Gun Lake and in the Bridge River Valley of Electoral Area A. The CCWR program was meant to provide a formal structure for integrating community resources into BC Wildfire Service response efforts, recognizing the value that fire brigade organizations like the Gun Lake Fire Protection Society brought throughout this event. Unfortunately, the CCWR program in its current form does not provide a viable framework for integrating resources that fire brigades bring to wildfire response. Instead, the CCWR program provides an avenue for community members to be employed as Type 3 unit crews, which means that they are required to evacuate the area and will only be permitted to return for specific work shifts to undertake work like moving equipment, mopping up, and patrolling. Traditionally, fire brigades across BC have engaged in a much broader range of initial attack and stay and defend activities. This work is dangerous and it occurs outside the purview of the BC Office of the Fire Commissioner, but nonetheless, it does occur when community members take it upon themselves to use their privately owned equipment. During the 2023 wildfire season, the BC Wildfire Service made it clear to SLRD staff that they valued the help provided by local fire brigades, particularly in the provision of structure protection unit sprinkler systems. The deployment of privately owned sprinkler systems helped to alleviate that resource strain on provincially owned equipment at a time when wildfires were burning across the province. The CCWR program provides no avenue for incorporating these community resources and instead sets up the SLRD for mismatched expectations with community members who have lived experience working effectively and collaboratively with the BC Wildfire Service. The CCWR program also presents the more fundamental problem that it downloads the work of organizing, equipping, and administering Type 3 firefighting crews onto local governments. While some money is available through the UBCM Community Resiliency Investment Fund, there is no guaranteed year-on-year revenue stream that will sustain CCWRs after community expectations have been set. In the absence of any real local government capacity or mandate, the management of natural hazards on provincially managed land must remain a provincial responsibility. This RFD asks that the board formally decline the SLRD's participation in the CCWR program and also that a letter be sent to the Ministry of Forests requesting that they develop an adequate framework for integrating fire brigades into provincial wildfire response. Instead of participating in the CCWR framework, staff will encourage the BC Wildfire Service to continue using their established statutory hiring process as an ad hoc means of contracting fire brigade members during emergency response, as they did in 2023. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Awesome. Thank you. I have a question in Lillooet. Go ahead, Lillooet.
I totally agree with the recommendations And, but I got one question with the CCWR. Last year, there were a number of, not so much in area A, but maybe in area B, that they took the S100 course. The concern is, to move forward, you have to have the recertification S100A.
Yeah.
And part of the request to the ministry should include the extra funding for these people that have had their S100 and S185, that they also fund the S100A. Because you need that certification to continue the program. So I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Would someone like to second the motion that we decline to participate and that we send a letter to the ministry explaining that as laid out the package? Seconder, Director Mack, comments? Settle like at the end. Anyone else up in Lillooet want to say something?
Yeah, I do. Thank you very much. And thanks, Mike Fushka, for the report. And it's really disappointing that things have gone this way. But there it is. And I think you're making the best decision you can under the circumstances. We still seem to be in area B, receiving a little bit of outreach help on some research and so forth from Kamloops. I think they've forgotten that we're SLRD and that we're still in the Kamloops Fire Center. And, you know, we'll sort of take any kind of help we can get. And our crews are recertifying some online, but some accessing some other training. Happily, Tribal Council will be doing some training and they welcome our folks as well to their training. So we may be able to sort of salvage some resources here in spite of what's happening at the higher levels. But I support your decision and I think it's a very good report and I'll certainly vote to support it. Thank you. Will you be coming to the April 4th wildfire roundtable just as a question? Because I know we'll be talking about this.
Take that offline. Director
Okay.
Birch-Jones, can you take that offline? Thanks.
Will do.
I'm gonna call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is he staying with us for the next gen?
Nope.
Nope. There he goes. Fantastic. Welcome back. Come on over.
Sure. Start with a little bit of context off the top. So this grant request aims to prepare the SLRD for Next Gen 911 in alignment with the CRTC mandate. Next Gen 911 will transition in about 2 years' time. So the legacy network will be turned off and the Next Gen network will be turned on. The proposed grant strategy starts with engaging a qualified vendor to conduct an organizational readiness assessment to identify the unknowns, necessary actions, and required resources for successful transition. And there are specific organizations that specialize in this work. The readiness assessment as a product delivers a scorecard and executive summary that can be used for further work planning while driving situational awareness through the organization about Next Gen 911. The intent of the grant request and grant ask is to ask for the maximum of $100,000. I've established a relationship with the UBCM program officer, and they are providing some flexibility for organizations to adjust their scope based on the findings of the readiness assessment process. The grant application is due for submission by April 11th. Thank you.
Questions? Go ahead.
Is this grant application a fair bit of work for you?
It is and it has been. Yes.
I mean, the reason I ask is we're sort of being mandated to make this transition and then we gotta put on your work plan, the work to do and go after the grant. I don't understand why this transition, I mean, is maybe not time for this, but yeah, if we have to do this, we should be given the resources to do it as opposed to having our staff go out and spend the time and capacity doing it. So just quick comment, I'll leave it there.
Right.
Because I guess the point is, are they gonna say no?
They're asking us to do this, so.
Appreciate the feedback through the chair. I get the sense, if I can add my sort of subjective interpretation of the situation, is everybody's on their heels with next gen 911 and there's appreciation of that. I get the sense with, as long as we, follow the grant guidelines, those that put their hands up will very likely be successful. And so I'm hopeful in that regard. Thank you.
Okay, would someone like to make the motion that the application is made to UVCM, that the board approve the staff time to provide the grant management, and that the Director of Protective Services is authorized to sign in these applications, documents, and agreements as required? Moved by Director Rainbow, seconded by Director Fattengill. Further comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, folks. Yeah, great.
This guy's doing this, now go out and beat for money.
They totally, they should be tied to their direction. Like, you have to do this. Oh, and here's the money. Yeah, there's money.
This is even more broad though, man.
Yeah, more than.
You guys weren't on the 9 list, were you? Not yet. Are you gonna be on it soon?
All right, there we go. Okay, we are on 8.5, and this is an information report regarding the CRI 2023 Fire Smart Residential Program, and we have Ms. Lucier here to speak to us or answer questions.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Would you like for me to read the report or just answer questions?
No, just answer questions. Do you have a question?
It's more of a comment, if I
Sure,
may.
that's fine.
Okay, I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Maud and Mark and Jason for their efforts last year. I thought this was a real face-to-face, boots on the ground program that was very positively received, certainly in my area, and I just want to acknowledge that. And then I have a suggestion for you for going forward this year. A suggestion for you, Maud, that we identify SLRD owned properties and we prioritize fire smarting those properties. One, because I think we have a responsibility to do it, but two, it's kind of setting an example for within the community. I'm not just talking about Area D, I'm thinking about the whole regional district. Thank you.
Ms. Lucier?
Thank you. I think what we ought to do is to maximize the capacity that we have now to deliver a residential program that is supporting residents of the SLRD as much as we can. The goal remains to help them make their homes more resilient. And my hope is that in the future, we develop more capacity to undertake further activities like the one Director Rainbow is suggesting. So for the time being, our focus remains supporting residents. And as the program continues to grow, we will be able to develop more capacity, such as this one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, would someone like to make the motion to receive the report? Moved by Director Richmond, seconded by Director Mack. Comment? Go ahead.
And just, I just want to celebrate this program and as well as a successful grant application. So I think it's a lot to celebrate here as we take on this very serious work of doing our best to keep our community safe in the face of a worsening wildfire situation. So thank you very much for the work and look forward to seeing this next phase.
Thank you. And comment from Lillooet, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Sal again. Thank you, Bob. The program was definitely successful in Area A, and I attended a session at Marshall Valley when they had their annual picnic. And our contractor was there got a table set up, signing people up. It was awesome to see the impact of this program. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. I think we have time for maybe one more. Two more? Two more.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, let's see it. 8.6, the Permanent North Water Service, water meter pilot project grant. Director Dunn.
Marbutt, Director of Environmental Services. In January, staff met with the Village of Pemberton operations team to discuss British Columbia water meter pilot project grant opportunity. And Pemberton North water is provided from the Village of Pemberton. So we decided to apply as they were applying. We've received approval in principle for this grant. The grant doesn't require SLRD to charge residents based on meter data. They're looking for that information to collect for a 5-year period. So I have a couple of recommendations in there. Board wants to proceed with this.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I support the staff recommendations, but in reading the background, I guess it was consultants report, they seem to not recommend meters unless I misunderstood. I'm just wondering if you can speak to that disconnect.
I think it would likely be because of the cost associated with it. It absolutely wouldn't make sense for us to spend, well, this grant, we would receive $343,000. But with the total funding, I think metering is absolutely the best way to find out the water use.
Director Mack.
Yeah, excuse me. My concern over when I worked in the city of Richmond, worked for Pemberton, and we talked about water meters all the time. And what it came down to in Richmond and here was to put them in on new construction or on say industrial construction, but to go and retrofit every house in the country with a water meter is not a viable operation. So in the village, what we did at the time was we put in zone meters. So you could separate off a zone and see how much water they're using. You'd have a pretty good idea how much they should be. And if they were way over, you knew there was leaks in the system. Now you're saying we're getting a grant to cover all the costs. That's a different thing, but if we have to staff and maintain the reading of the meters and all that kind of stuff, I mean, does this grant cover all of that over a period of time, or how does that work?
Yeah, so this grant does cover the radio infrastructure that comes with that. So that all these meters will be radio and frequency, and it will be really easy to pull that data. Yeah. And I believe Village of Pemberton has received this as well. And there's a bunch of Lions Bay, Merritt. So there's a lot of municipalities going through this as well. So it'll make it easier for us to work through those steps as well.
Right on.
I have a question from Lillooet, and then I have Director Richmond.
Hi, thank you. So with regards to this, so that's really great that it's grant funded. I appreciate that and the work that you've done on it. Lillooet actually did this about 12 years ago, and we got a grant for it, and we put in all the water meters, and we did do a couple of sections up on like towards Cleakit. We did that as one section, so we didn't put monitors on each house, but we put it at the kind of at the gate of that, and we monitor that. We still have commercial properties, but all in all, we put them on all the residential properties that we had. We monitored them for 5 years to determine if residents were abusing them or leak detection. And we did find leak detection, but we also found leak detection within the monitors themselves. So right in the caps, as the caps go into the holding tank out in the front of the house, those were leaking. The biggest problem that we had was with the batteries. The batteries began to fail, And because batteries don't last, no matter what, so. What I'm saying is that, you know, hopefully, you'll check into the longevity of the battery life and the support of the battery life. Because we didn't want to pay the cost of trying to renew those batteries because they were way too expensive. And also the amount of staff time and the work that they were doing to go and detect a leak in somebody's house, versus, you know, the rate to reduce the consumption was really not in our benefit. So to this day, we don't do that. Now, if we were at Kamloops or Merritt or Vancouver or whatever, we could understand that. But in a small community, you know, it is really a challenge between staff work, the battery cost eventually that it will have. So it's not really a question, but I am gonna say that if you have any issues with it, like, please reach out to Lillooet if you want any more information or anything like that. You know, we have a lot of data on it. We have a lot of information that we still have. So like I said, if Pemberton or Area C, feel free to reach out to us. We're there. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Richmond?
I'll make the resolution and speak to it.
Yes. Thank you.
Pemberton's been, first of all new building requires universal metering within the village of Pemberton. We've been successful, as Mr. Butta said, in a $4.7 million grant. We're a great fit for it. And we're really excited about it in that we feel it'll go a long way towards our water conservation goals. That's the initial goal. Eventually, we'll talk about charging accordingly, which I think, you know, makes a lot of sense. If you're a home with a pool and you water your lawn 8 times a day and you're a home with neither of those things, you shouldn't be paying the same amount. You should pay for your usage. And we think those things will drive water conservation in a really important way. So we're pretty excited about it, and having the addition of Pemberton North Water makes total sense to complete the system. So happy to see it go through.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. When I lived in Surrey, they made the decision and just told people, you are going to be metered. It is going to cost you, I think it was something like $200 for the installation of the meter. The first 500 people will get it free. I was on the phone right away. The guy that, when he came to install it, I don't think it took him more than half an hour. It's just a little fob thing on the just outside the garage, and a wire into your water intake, and the effect of that was the water usage in Surrey plummeted because you're getting charged. So if you're leaving your sprinklers on all day, which some people were doing, put them on when they go to work, turn them off when they come home in the evening, you were paying, and it made, instead of just so much a month, so much a quarter for your water bill, you were charged according to what your meter said. So I really think this is a way, if we're serious about conserving water, it's the way to go.
All in favor? Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries.
So there.
You convinced us all.
I'm gonna do 8.7.
Probably all convinced that way.
8.7. And I am happy to see you. Thank you. And
question.
nope. So this is a time sensitive moment. We have less than 30 seconds left. Make it really fast.
How would a community get hold of pitch-in bags if we wanted to organize a community pitch-in event?
Unfortunately, getting pitch-in bags is getting really difficult. I have a feeling that the organization doesn't have consistent funding. So that's why in the report it said that organizations, community groups are to register on our website, and we'll send them a certificate so that they can show at an SLRD facility to not have to pay the tipping fees.
But bring your own bags.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. And my question, I'll ask Squamish separately. I just don't know if I have to pay fees at Squamish. No, okay, good, thank you.
Go ahead.
I was gonna move it and comment briefly.
Awesome. Moved, seconded by Director Crompton. Go ahead, speak to it.
Just really support this, and I think it's a fun event as well as an important one, and just always appreciate as a director getting a couple of reminders leading up to the meeting, so I can ask to make sure we get reminded again.
That we're gonna do this on the April meeting,
Yeah.
except that we're gonna be elsewhere. We're not cleaning up another.
Well, yeah, we don't have to do it here. We just have to do it.
We're elsewhere in May. Oh, no, it's May, never mind. I am elsewhere in April.
So-
I won't be here.
Well, you can do it. where-
I'll go clean up Victoria. It'll be great. Okay, with that, I'll call a question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Recess this meeting until tomorrow.